If you ask a farmer to tell you about their day, you usually get some version of woke up, watered the crops, explored the mine, fought some monsters, farm stuff. Welcome to Triple Click, where we bring the games to you. Today we're talking about Stardew Valley, the little life sim that could, which just received a huge update and, 8 years after it first came out, is just as much of a phenomenon as ever. Let's talk about why that is. I'm Kirk Hamilton.
I'm Maddy Myers.
And I'm Jason Schreier. Hello.
Hello,
my friends. It is beautiful out. The flowers are flowering. Spring is springing.
Yeah, man.
It's very exciting.
Lovely in Portland as well. I'm loving it. The tulips are looking so beautiful.
Oh, good. We'd love to see it.
That's kind of on brand of what we're talking about this episode. But before that, a couple of things that you all should know. First of all, we are a listener-supported show. I'm sure you probably already know that, but we're on Maximum Fun, the wonderful worker-owned podcast network that we have been a member of since the founding of Triple Click, and we are entirely supported by you, our listeners. So if you want to listen to if you want to support our show and get access to bonus episodes, including one that we're going to be doing this month, just coming up here on the new Fallout show that's on Amazon, which is going to be super fun. Super fun to talk about. But there's a ton of old ones in the archive going back to games and movies and all kinds of things. And also you would be just supporting us as we make this show. So to do that, go to MaximumFun.org/join and become a member. And thank you so much to all of our members for supporting our show. The other thing I want to announce is something that we have mentioned before, but want to mention again. And that is that we have a live show coming up this summer, our second ever Triple Click Live, which is super exciting. We're going to be on stage on Saturday, June 8th at 6 p.m. On Saturday, June 8th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time at the Terragram Ballroom in Los Angeles. That will be the same weekend as the Summer Games Fest. So we'll be talking about what we've seen at SGF and new games that were announced, things we're excited about. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're very excited. And you can order tickets now, and we hope that you do. There's a link for that down in the show notes. So again, that's Saturday, June 8th at the Terragram Ballroom in Los Angeles. And of course, if you can't make it, you'll still be able to hear the show in the feed. But really, you want to be there. You want to be in the room with us.
Yeah, you want to be there.
It's very fun. We had a great time at our last live show.
You want to hear all the crowd noise before Kirk edits in fake crowd noise.
Yeah, because he's going to add in like canned laughter and all kinds of stuff.
Yes, you want to hear all the crickets. You want to hear all the jokes that fall flat.
No, they all land. And the electricity in the room is unstoppable, folks.
Yeah, it's going to be too loud.
It's true. I actually edit the show to make the jokes seem worse because they're too loud.
Have to ramp it down a little bit.
Right, because people are going to be like, this sounds fake now. The audience is too hot. It's crazy.
Right. We need to make it's working some balance here. So that's going to be super fun. Get some tickets. Come out, support us, see us live. It's going to be a great time. All right, let's get on with the show. Speaking of lovely weather and blooming tulips and all of that, Maddy, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about Stardew Valley, which has been just such a wonderful game for me to ease back into like an armchair after playing so much Dragon's Dogma 2 and all that friction. I mean, there is some friction in Stardew, and we can talk about that a little bit. But part of why we're talking about Stardew Valley is because it had a pretty big update 1.6 that came out on March 16th, this past most recent March. But this game originally came out in February of 2016. So it's been around for a little bit.
God, 8 years
ago. Wow.
Yeah.
I know. And I truly feel like the past 8 years have been kind of revolutionary for farming sims and lifestyle sims of this kind. I think during the pandemic, we talked a lot about Animal Crossing and how many people were playing that, the Switch game, New Horizons. And this game is like the farming sim in my mind. It is the farming sim. It makes every action feel good, and it makes chores feel satisfying. And that is a mix of a variety of things, some light touch story and environmental storytelling overall, some really pleasing pixel graphics, and wonderful music, and also it all coheres. And maybe that's because it's all pretty much made by just one person, and that's Eric Barone, who also goes by Concerned Ape online and as a game designer. At this point, there's a couple other contractors who work with him to support the game, but he originally made it all by himself. And I actually wanted to kick it to you, Jason, because you talked to Eric Barone back in the day for your book.
Yeah, my first book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, had a chapter about Eric's story and the story of Stardew Valley. And something I think is particularly notable, yes, to your point, he had a couple of contractors, but he is the rare, and I think maybe the only, or one of the only examples of a solo dev who's actually a solo dev. Because oftentimes in the game development world, people have talked about people who are solo devs, who actually just like have someone else writing the music or have an artist with them helping them out. And it's kind of like this myth of solo devs. For example, Toby Fox is not a solo dev. He made Undertale with a couple of other people. Jonathan Blow is not a solo dev. He made Braid. He had an artist on Braid and a team on The Witness and so on and so forth. But Eric Barone made Stardew Valley entirely by himself. Every single aspect of that game he made by himself. He didn't even use an outside engine. Like he wrote all the code himself without relying on someone else's like physics or rendering or anything like that, or any sort of like utility.
And had to learn a programming language, from what I understand, in order to do so. Like knew a little bit, but then was like, I'm gonna just learn how to do this. I mean, Jason, I'll let you continue because you talked to him, but
it's pretty wild. It's a wild story. So he started out, I'll give the kind of abridged version of his story, which is that he started out making this thing as kind of like an experiment. His goal originally was, he looked around at the Harvest Moon series, which he had grown up loving and playing on the Super Nintendo, and he was like, man, this series has kind of gone downhill. There haven't been any good ones released in a while. What if I make a modern version that kind of captures what I really loved about the old games? And he started working on it. He thought it was going to be like this little Xbox Live Arcade project that he released in 6 months, maybe put out for free or something like that, and then moved on to like something bigger. And he saw this as kind of like, he did this after he graduated from college as like a little, I don't know, in between gig before he got a real job, quote unquote. And then of course, as often happens, it blew up and it wound up turning into a 5-year development for him. He started in around 2011 and released the game in 2016. He was supported by a very, very accommodating, very loving partner. His girlfriend at the time, I believe, turned fiance, turned wife, who Amber Hagman, who supported him quite a bit the whole way. He wound up getting a couple of odd jobs here and there during the development process as well, but she was also very supportive of him. They lived in their parents' house for a while, in one of their parents' house for a while. They had a very long saga. And one of the things that I think really struck me about his story is that, like, when you work on the same thing for really any extended period of time, as anyone knows, you find that A, you get better at it the more you do it, and therefore B, you want to just redo all of your old work as you go. And so this can really turn into an infinite long process if you don't have some sort of like external pressure on you to actually release the thing. And so his saga had quite a few ups and downs along the way, but eventually he released the thing, and he found a publisher, Chucklefish. They got some Twitch streamers involved, built up some early buzz. He was also blogging about it at a time when blogs of indie games could actually get attention, 2011 or so, because there weren't a ton of indie games around back then the way there are today. And I mean, pretty much immediately it became a bestseller, wound up selling many millions of copies, and turned into a cultural phenomenon. And really, I don't know if it changed his life, because the times that I've talked to him and met him, he's still been kind of living the same lifestyle despite now being a mega millionaire.
That seems to be the case. Yeah, the game has made, I was Googling around, and 30 million was the figure that I found. I don't know if that's accurate or not. The man is a millionaire, suffice to say. But we talked to him recently for a Polygon story about just asking him what he uses, like what tech he uses as kind of a classic bit for stories. And I expected him to be like, oh, here's my computer, here's my build. And instead he was like, here's the candle I like to light at night before I fall asleep. Here's the fleece jacket that I've been wearing for 10 years. And like, that was the kind of product that he was like, yeah, these are the things I use to get Stardew Valley done. Like that, I was kind of blown away by him as a person. I don't know. I really feel like that says a lot about the guy, that he's just still that person.
Yeah. When I met him, he was telling me about how his computer, he like put his monitor on top of a box so it would be at the proper height. And when I met him, he was telling me about how the most exciting purchase he had made was like a proper computer. Like, he was. When I met him, we were driving to PAX together, and I got in his car, and the front passenger door didn't open, so you had to like climb it, or the front driver door didn't open, so you had to climb into the passenger seat. And I was like, man, how much money do you have? And you're still driving around this car.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I feel like that value, those values kind of are expressed in the game too, right? I mean, it is very much a game about rejecting the rat race, rejecting consumerism, and building something a little bit more sustainable out of somewhat more humble ingredients. So it kind of makes sense. Like his personality really comes out in the game, and I think is a big part of what makes it so special and what makes people love it so much.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're kind of speaking to the actual story of the game, which it is really funny knowing that as far as I know, Eric Barone never had a corporate job of any kind, but the game begins with you working for, I mean, now I see the fictional Joja Mart is like an Amazon parody, but at the time I think it was more of a Walmart parody. It's just that now times have changed, and now we might think of it as an Amazon parody, but it kind of depicts like a series of corporate drones working in an office, like a massive warehouse style office, and the main character who you get to design opens this mysterious letter from their grandpa that leaves them this farm, and they can leave it all behind, leave corporate life behind. And this is such a dream of corporate drones everywhere, including myself when I've had more corporate jobs than the one I have now, of just like, what if I just moved to the middle of nowhere and just had a little farm, and I just planted my little seedlings and I would just eat what I grow. I mean, it's extremely naive because farming is actually like significantly more difficult and high pressure than that. And I think it's like a uniquely corporate drone kind of a fantasy, but that's what the game is playing into, and very effectively so, for somebody who never actually had to leave the corporate life behind and instead is fantasizing about it in a very different way. And again, I don't know that this is a man who leaves the house very often either, but this is a game that is very much about leaving the house and getting in tune with nature and just carefully plotting your little seeds. But Kirk, I wanted to hear from you because I think you've played the most out of any of us. And I'm curious if that ever took on a quality for you of like really going hardcore into Stardew Valley, because there is a subsection of it that is like really into min-maxing, or if you like strictly tried to do the classic Kirk Hamilton taking a walk every day and not looking at Twitter. Like that's probably closer to what you were doing. But what's your relationship with Stardew Valley as a player?
I've played it more in that second way, where I don't really min-max. The lure is always there because it's an extremely min-maxable game. The first 2 weeks of the game, you have a certain limited amount of money and seeds and time. So I think a lot of people listening to this have probably played it, but to explain a few of those mechanics to people who haven't, the things that set this game apart from Animal Crossing are those minutia for sort of how you organize your time. And I would say, speaking of friction, the friction in this game is largely logistical. It's a lot of like understanding how and when you want to do things. And there's a limited time in every day. So a lot of your time is spent making decisions about how you're going to do what you're going to do, which winds up really feels like life. It is very much a life simulator because unlike an Animal Crossing, which runs according to the clock inside of your device, so you actually have 12 hours or whatever of sunlight every day in the summertime. So that's a long time to do stuff. In Stardew Valley, everything that you do, the clock is ticking and it's moving right along. So you have to really kind of plan things out and optimize your schedule. And as a result, you can really get into min-maxing where it's like, okay, well, I have these, I think it's like 8 or 10 parsnip seeds that you start with. Yep. And I've got, this much time. And so I don't have very much money, but the best thing you can do for money, I believe, is you can go and forage in the woods, because actually if you get fruit and nuts out of the woods, that stuff you can sell at the store for more money than the parsnips, which take a little while to grow. So the minute you're starting to make those calculations, you're getting kind of pulled into the machinery of Stardew Valley, which is gonna get you a little bit no matter what. Like I always get eventually a little pulled into that. Well, okay, cool. My beanstalks are growing. Those are going to be ready tomorrow, and then I can sell them and I can use that to buy this. And like if I lay these out, I can water a little bit more efficiently by going, you get into that kind of mindset, and it can be very satisfying. But if you go too far into it, the way that, at least too far for me, I think, for my preference, you get very, it turns into like, oh man, I've kind of screwed everything up because my first week I like had extra seeds that I didn't water. I forgot to water one of my plants, so it's like a little behind all the other plants. So every time I water, I have to be reminded of my mistake. That's like, that kind of thing can really kind of trigger your more obsessive tendencies. And I think that can be, for me at least, a less rewarding way to play the game. Though I think a very interesting aspect of the game that maybe we can talk about, like thematically interesting. So I tend to play it in a more relaxed way. I've done a couple of what I would call like committed playthroughs. When it first came out in 2016, I was still writing for Kotaku, and I wound up playing it just because I thought it seemed interesting and saw it was buzzy, and really just got sucked in and probably played a couple dozen hours and got maybe through a year or so in the game's calendar. And then it must have been on Switch. I think it came out on Switch a little later, maybe, and that's when I played it. Okay, so I played the Switch version, and then I did that again. Kind of the same thing. I knew a little more what I was doing. I started a new game. I remember I was romancing Emily, who is the blue-haired girl. And then I got to where I could ask her to marry me. And it was right before I actually proposed to my now wife, Emily. And I remember telling her about that. I'm like, I'm going to propose to Emily, and I'm also going to propose to Emily. And so that puts that,
So how did it go with the other Emily? Pretty good.
You know what? I never went back to that game and finished it. I mean, I proposed, but I think we never wound up actually getting married just because I kind of fell off of the game.
So she's like, man, he left me at the altar. Like
she's just frozen in time in that weird way that these games do. So, anyways, yeah, that's kind of how I play it, and I think it's a really interesting game. I think it kind of fits in an interesting place up against Animal Crossing. I first played one of these games with Animal Crossing New Leaf, which came out in 2012. Yep. That was on 3DS. That was the first time I'd ever played any game of this type, like a cozy / management attendant befriend game where you have a farm and you're making friends. And then I played Stardew Valley in 2016, and then I played New Horizons, Animal Crossing New Horizons in 2020. And by then I was very comfortable with this sort of game. And they're all similar and different in different ways. I think a big part of the fantasy that you were talking about, Maddy, that this game offers, this fantasy of like this pastoral, farm life, where
romantic,
like you say,
with a capital R. Yeah.
Yes, like farming is actually backbreaking work that often doesn't pay well, and it's like very unfair and difficult in all these ways.
And it's often very technical now. Like you actually have to really know how to use a tractor and various other
and like
devices.
you're farming as part of a like monocultural thing where you're just growing like corn so that they can use it for ethanol or whatever, and you just have tracts and tracts of land that have been reduced to just corn, and it's like a very weird thing. It's government subsidies are really complex. None of that is in this game. This game is like the fantasy version of you just have this little farm and you can do whatever you want with it, and everything grows in the soil, and it's great. Now, crucial difference between Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing is that in Animal Crossing, you're always in debt and you're paying off debt, which I think is very familiar to real world farmers.
Yep.
But in Stardew Valley, you don't have any debt. You just own your farm free and clear, and you grow whatever you want on it. So you feel much more agency over your life. And then another big part of the fantasy, I think, that we haven't really touched on is the social fantasy.
Yep.
Because the other big part of it is like leave the corporate city life where like you're really alienated and go to this small town where everyone knows everyone and you're the new guy and everyone is curious about you and you can become friends with them and fall in love with them and like have all of these different kinds of relationships with all of these people in town, and you're like immediately knit into the social fabric of this perfect little small town. And that I think is really appealing and is a big part of why people like this game so much.
It definitely is.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me. So when I watch Fiddler on the Roof, which, by the way, this is the second time in 2 weeks we've talked about Fiddler on the Roof, but hey, I love it.
We should have like a fiddler alert that plays every time someone mentions Fiddler.
I think of what my own ancestors were doing, the Jewish shtetl life and the small town atmosphere where everyone knows each other, and they were all miserable in many ways, but also had something that like I think a lot of people here, just like in our modern life, can't really recreate or try to recreate online because that small town feeling is just missing. And so, yeah, I think Stardew Valley appeals to that kind of sense of community that I think a lot of people just are lacking in their own lives. And to extrapolate even further, might be one of the reasons that we see so much toxicity around video game culture and the way that people kind of get tribalistic about their favorite brands and stuff is because that's their community. Is like, I'm Team Xbox. That's my community, because they don't have that elsewhere, and they don't have that kind of tribe to belong to elsewhere. And I think Stardew Valley offers that fantasy of like, hey, look at me, I'm part of this little village. Everyone knows each other. We're down in the and there are like I think the nefarious parts of that aren't really captured quite as much. You don't see quite as much of the gossip and the backstabbing and the kind of uglier aspects of that.
It's not quite there. I mean, I will say though, I do feel like the other big strength of Stardew Valley as compared to an Animal Crossing, which is one of my other kind of direct points of comparison, and that I've played both a lot, is that Animal Crossing is a bit too twee for me. Like when the characters are mean, it's still in a very childlike way, whereas Stardew Valley it's funny and it is twee in certain ways and cute, but it is also dark. Like there are characters who seem depressed. Like there's like an alcoholic character. There are characters who are very downtrodden. I mean, Jojo Mart is an antagonist in the game, and like the threat of corporate interference on this cozy little town, like there's an actual conflict that is driving the game overall, and Animal Crossing just doesn't. It is pretty conflict free in a fundamental way, and sometimes that's what you want out of a game. I'm not trying to judge that, but I do feel like, at least for me, Stardew has just enough of that tension and story and sense of humanity in its writing that it still preserves the fantasy while also allowing you to be like, well, I'm part of a community, but it has its flaws and it has its problems, and I'm actually making a decision to like side with the local shopkeeper who is going to push back against the like Walmart-esque company that's trying to drive in and like has cheaper prices and is like competing with him. Like that, I think, is like a level of tension that Eric Broen just chose to include, and I really appreciate in a game, and you don't see it that often, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a noticeable difference between this game and Animal Crossing, that there's a specificity to the town. I mean, each of these characters is a character, and they're each written a different way. I wrote an article for Kotaku about how I tried to romance Haley when I first played the game, who's the like kind of quote unquote hot like blonde girl that you first meet, and she's kind of rude to you, and you're like, oh man, all right, it's a dating sim, so you're like, I'm just gonna give her gifts, and then I must have her.
I must convince this bits and bytes to like me. By pressing,
and you very much you can do the dating thing of just like inserting gifts until eventually the person's like, okay, cool, you seem fine, and I like you. But what I found with Haley at the time was I did that a little bit, and she was sort of not into it because there is a whole complex like people like some type of gift
they
and don't like
like
another type.
Yeah,
and she's also just I think kind of a little standoffish for a little longer than other characters, and I found myself believing in the character to the point that I was like, oh, this girl doesn't like me, like, and that's fine. And the article was kind of about how the game wound up, for me at least, recreating this realistic experience of rejection, just in like a kind of gentle rejection of like, okay, well, whatever, especially because her sister is Emily. And I met Emily, and Emily's really nice and like funny and sort of warm. And I was like, oh, I like Emily, and just started hanging out with her more socially. And it was pretty cool that like, obviously I know it's a game and I know these aren't real people and they're written to fill these different archetypes.
Because if they were, dating her sister would maybe be kind of weird.
Right. Also that. But like, I think it's cool that because he wrote these specific characters, it allows space for you to sort of understand them and then interact with them in this believable way. Where in Animal Crossing, I mean, you have like a rotating cast of characters going through your town. They're not exactly procedurally generated, but they sort of are. Or at least there's different types that are written, and it just doesn't have that same feeling of like, you know, Eric Barone wrote this town, and he thought of each of these characters, and he wrote them each to be like a different archetype and to fit into this kind of, you know, narrative tapestry. It's not literary exactly, but it feels kind of like a book about a small town with all these different people, or a TV show about a small town where each person fulfills a different role.
Yeah, Amber gets some credit too, because Eric used to go on long walks with Amber, like talking about the characters and their relationships and their
that's so cool.
That makes a lot of sense because the conversations are so strong in the game.
Yeah, and it does. It feels like, from what I've seen, I haven't played as much as the two of you, but it feels like a game where he got some female input for the
for the female characters. Yeah, which especially then.
Well, they're all, and each character is very well defined. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
have either of you played the new update that just came out and like seen the new content in there? I'm curious to hear about that, what has been added. And the fact that 8 years later, he's still releasing giant new patches is wild.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally wild how the game has changed since I even last played it on Switch, like last did a dedicated playthrough. There's a lot of stuff that I've never really engaged with. One of the biggest being multiplayer.
Yeah.
That you can just play this game with your friends now, which is totally awesome and really different. I mean, you can have a farm like Minecraft style where you're each contributing to the farm and each living in the town, which is just like that opens the door to a completely different way of playing the game. I've never really engaged with that. Past that, I mean, there are all these farm types now. When you start a new game, it gives you the option of choosing from like a farm with a bunch of islands and all this water running through it, which makes it a lot easier to fish, but gives you a little less room for farming. Or I started a farm in the woods. So it's kind of like there's a lot more trees and a lot more natural stuff so you can forage more easily, which actually made it easier to make money early on. But again, there's like less tillable land, at least at first, so you can't develop and you can't make as many buildings. There's a new farm, I think it's new in 1.6, that like is just for livestock. And you start with some livestock, which is unusual since normally in the game you start doing that a little bit later once you have more money. So it's totally built around that. And there's a new kind of grass that grows. I think it's like this bluegrass or something that the livestock really like eating, and so it makes it a lot easier to just have livestock right off the bat. So there's all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, that's like really obvious because you start the game and it gives you new options, and he's added some of those over the years. But then there's so much hidden stuff in this game, right? In addition to the town and the kind of Animal Crossing parts of it, the parts that feel like maintaining a farm and talking to people, there's like a whole adventure, almost action RPG built into this game as well. Like I went really deep into the mine in at least one of my playthroughs. There's a mine that you go through where each level is like subsequently more difficult, and there are monsters that you fight.
Yeah.
You can like craft Minecraft weapons like a sword and a shield. You're like
Yeah,
getting
it's very
unique
Zelda-y.
resources down there.
Yeah.
It is. There's a whole mystery that you're solving, and you're like decoding stuff, and then you run out of time. Like you just get tired, so you can only go so far before you run out of time each day. But you're like unlocking
Kind of like a
shortcuts.
roguelike.
It feels kind of like playing a roguelike, but it's
You're
built
like going
into the structure of
prepared
the
and
game.
you're like getting more and more as you go.
Was all that
Right.
was that in the original release or was that added
Yes.
later? Yeah, that was in the
The
original.
mine was there, but he's expanded it significantly. I think at some point he added, I could be wrong about this, but I think he added a second mine to that second location you take the bus to.
Right.
And then, so it's like the mine has definitely expanded. And I don't know what's down there now. I mean, I didn't get there in my
Yeah.
most recent playthrough, or at least not yet. But I'm sure there's like plenty more hidden stuff because there are a lot of secrets and hidden codes. And like, even when you walk around the town, when you first get there, you'll see like weird statues and stuff.
Yeah.
And think, okay, that's going to be, there are still things where I see them and I'm like, I don't actually really know what that is.
You get to the bottom and there's the sequel to Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley
It's a
2
whole new
is-
game.
It's a whole
You go
new
through a
game.
portal into a new farm and a new town.
It does kind of feel that way. I mean, there is also like a couple of little magical parts of the game, like literal magic that happen.
Yeah.
Like we're making it sound like it's purely
No, there's a
mundane
wizard's
reality,
tower
but
that a
there's
wizard
also
lives in.
magic in this game, and it
Yeah.
it is deceptively deep. I mean, I think that's part of why it's so popular, because in addition to just kind of being a farming sim that has all the farming sim chores to offer, chores positive, complimentary chores, it also has all these other elements. Like you can be a person who's just really into mining and is like, I'm just gonna go full mining mode on Stardew, or you can be somebody who's really into fishing. If you are, I don't know what's going on with you. The fishing, I'm against it. I'm against it on all
It's
levels.
a good way to make money
I
in the
don't
early
like
goings,
it.
I will say that.
Are you good at fishing, Kirk? I'm not. I find it
Boy.
extraordinarily difficult in this game.
No, I didn't do a lot of fishing this most recent time, so I can't remember how good I am at it. I know that it's a very good way to make money, and I've definitely done a fair amount of it. There was definitely a period in one of my playthroughs where I was constantly going down to the beach
Yep.
and talking
And you,
to the
like, got
guy and
good
like
at
finding
it.
the best places to fish. Yeah, so it can be useful for the economy, but I don't remember it being particularly fun or being good at it. No.
Yeah, but there are certainly weirdos who like
Can
it.
I just say I've played like 4 different games over the past month that each have fishing mini games, and they all drive me crazy. They're all terrible. I hate fishing mini games so much. For
I
some
know.
reason, everybody's
Yeah.
obsessed with fishing mini games, and I can't understand the appeal at all.
It's bizarre because fishing games can be great. We talked about Dredge on this show recently and how fun it is to fish in that game. I mean, there are games that really do it well. Of course, Dredge is a fishing game. They really figured out how to have it be fun.
It's not a little mini game where you have to sit around and wait. It's a game where you're actively engaging the entire time. I think my lack of enjoyment is proportionate to the amount of time you have to just wait and stare at a screen, which is often the times of fishing mini games, as reflective of real life fishing.
And now I'm thinking about what makes a fishing mini game good. So like fishing is fun as a video game activity because it has a lot of interesting mechanical tensions, right? A lot of interesting mechanical frictions. Like
tension on the line, maybe?
The line is getting pulled, but then you can't pull too hard. Like a really good fishing mini game, you kind of have to, you can't overdo it or the line will snap. You know, you can't let it out too much or the fish will get away. So there's a lot of good push and pull, and it's pretty fun to do just in a sort of, you know, mechanical friction kind of way. But yeah, it also has an element of randomness, right? Because you don't know what kind of fish you're going to get, which is a big thing I remember in Animal Crossing. Like you'll pull up a tire and you're just like, ugh, another tire. But then sometimes you pull up like a really valuable fish that you're very excited to go and sell. So it has a lot of elements I think that are very appealing. It's a little bit of a slot machine, but it's a slot machine that's very fun to pull the lever on. But then I guess, I don't know. I'm trying to think of fishing mini games that I've really liked versus ones that I haven't liked. And Dredge is a very good example of how to do it right, because I'm always excited to catch what I'm going to catch, and I like the process of doing it. This is a tangent, but it's kind of interesting.
Well, there's no waiting. Okay, so the one that has been infuriating me recently is just one where you just have to wait and just stare at the screen until an exclamation point pops up, and then you press a button when the exclamation point pops up. Like those are the worst kind.
Yeah. I mean, Stardew has some waiting involved, and I think that is the part of the game that I both like and dislike. Like, I truly have to get into the mindset, not just with fishing, but with the whole game, of waiting and being patient, because I don't really play with mods. So especially if you're starting over, which I did this most recent time, you get exhausted, like the game status exhausted so quickly.
Right.
And it's so frustrating in those first couple weeks because you're like, well, I'm simply a corporate drone. I, of course, can't cut down more than two trees.
You're really out of shape.
I can't do anything. So I'm going to just need to go to bed at 2 p.m. Like, just from a realism standpoint and a story standpoint, I think it's very effective. But from a gameplay standpoint, it is infuriating. And I did have multiple moments, especially because I chose to play it on my Steam Deck, but I'm playing it on Steam. And I'm like, well, if I installed mods, I'd have to figure out how to install them on my Steam Deck. I don't want to deal with that, and I don't want to go and sit at my computer.
Are you saying you're too exhausted to deal with installing mods?
I am saying I'm too exhausted.
Your meter is bottoming out. My meter is sweat coming out of your brow.
And you know, at 6 p.m. when I stop working and I want to play some Stardew Valley, you know what I don't want to do? I don't want to become exhausted by installing mods for Stardew Valley. Right. I just want to play it. But I actually think it's good for me, because it forces me into a mindset that is kind of more meditative, that I really enjoy in games that are of this type, where I have to be really intentional with all the actions that I'm taking. Like in Stardew, I guess it's a scythe, the thing you use to cut grass with doesn't take up energy. So you can kind of use that and be like, all right, what are all of the grasses that I want to clear? Like it's not going to take up any energy at all, so I can clear as much grass as I want. But there's a couple rocks that are just in a really dumb spot. So I'm going to use up all of my energy on just those for today. But you do actually have to truly think through every single step that you're going to take. And that's probably good for me. I feel like I can feel my brain being forced into a different mode.
I think that's a large part of what makes the game so appealing for people.
It's
is
the
that
logistical
kind of
friction.
Logistical friction, the planning, the execution, the kind of like, all right, here's what I want my farm to look like. I'm going to make that happen. When it is done, after all of the trials and tribulations that I've gone through, all of the energy that I've expended and the days I've had to sleep way too early, it will look like I envisioned it. And that is the big appeal of this game, I think, or at least one of the main appeals of this game.
And what I think is kind of interesting about that is that the game winds up, if you're not careful, turning into this productivity simulator that actually embraces some of the very, things that the protagonist is supposedly leaving behind. And that, I think this is not a new observation about this game, but it is a very true one, and one that I've found when I've played, as I've sort of automated my farm and bought sprinklers and made it so that I can make more and more and more produce faster and faster. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to make money, because I want to buy more things for my farm and improve it.
Have you considered making only corn and working directly with government subsidies?
Well, and if you get really into min-maxing, that is exactly what happens to you, is that you grow only the most profitable produce every single season. You start at exactly the right time to make the most money. And really soon you start to see how a sort of capitalist, like a series of capitalist incentives like we have in our actual world can lead to a massive monoculture where the entire middle of the country is like corn, because that's the only thing that makes any kind of financial sense to grow. And it's kind of weird. You get this like perverse thing where there's like one crop everywhere.
And it doesn't make environmental sense, but it does make financial sense. Yeah.
And that's not really a consideration in this game.
So, man, here's an apocryphal story that I saw on the internet. I think like on LinkedIn, one of those LinkedIn things or something like that. Okay. So this guy, this like American banker is in South America on some trip, and he's like in a fishing boat with this fisherman, the South American fisherman. And the fisherman is like living this happy existence. He's catching fish and going home, and after a couple hours, he's going to take naps and hang out with his family. And the worker, the American guy, the banker, is like, hey, why don't you take that extra time and catch even more fish, so then you can make some money with it, with the surplus, and then you can buy more boats and then catch even more fish, and eventually you can become this business owner and you can have tens of millions of dollars. And the fisherman looks at him and he's like, what would I do with that tens of millions of dollars? And the banker is like, well, then you can retire, and then you could go home and be with your family and hang out and do what you want all day. and that's kind of like, that feels like Stardew Valley in a nutshell. If you can although you can, I don't know, maybe that's how can we apply that to Stardew Valley? I suppose.
No, I see what you're saying.
I think that's like that's a great anecdote, and very true to a certain way of playing Stardew Valley. And that's what I think is really cool about this game. It's not just that one thing. It leaves room for you to become this like master, super
farming magnate.
Farming magnate who is like making all the money in the world and has super optimized everything. And that can be very satisfying just from a video game brain standpoint. But you don't have to play that way. This game also makes it possible for you to empower Joja Mart to take over the town and ruin everything.
Yes, you can take what I would consider the evil path in the game.
Yeah, it's built into the game.
Joja Mart. Yeah.
Exactly. That is possible. And then you can do some middle ground, like the way that I play it, where I do find satisfaction in optimizing my farm, but I like to get it to where, I'm kind of making enough that I can build stuff if I want to, but it's not like super min-maxed out. And I have enough time to just explore and get to know townspeople and go down their relationship storylines and get to know them even more, and go down into the mine and find weird stuff and explore and just feel like I have enough time to kind of do whatever I want, because you do have infinite time in this game. You can just keep playing. You don't get old. You don't get sick and die. You can just go for years and years and years. So you don't really have that to worry about. There isn't that feeling of oh my gosh, I'm going to run out of time that you can start to feel in real life. And with that constraint lifted, you're free to live however you want. And maybe that's actually the grandest fantasy that this game offers is infinite time. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's true. Although I feel like it offers not only the fantasy of time, but also the constraints of just a video game rewarding you with dopamine. Yes, real life offers you that too, but not in quite as literal a way. You do chores in real life, and they might make you feel good, but not in the same way that it makes you feel good to do them in Stardew. And so that's why I think resisting the pull of min-maxing is actually more difficult. I've never done it in Stardew, but I am also really sympathetic to it. And especially with new people checking out 1.6, update 1.6, I've seen that debate emerge anew, where there are players arguing you're playing the game wrong, but everyone is sort of equally right, because you can play it fully min-maxed, corn demigod, or you can play it just fully relaxed and just trying to meander around and just meet everybody and go through the storylines. And there isn't really a wrong way to play, but the former way does feel rewarding. The game can't help. I mean, I don't know if this is Eric Barone's fault, because the politics of the game are pretty right there on its face. But because of the way it's designed, it is satisfying to do things correctly. Like Kirk said at the beginning, like you do notice when your plants are not growing at the exact same time or rate because you didn't plant them correctly. So therefore it is inherently motivating to have your plants look all the same and pretty and lined up. Like I don't know. I guess I'm saying that is a part of it that isn't like real life, but maybe people do have this problem in real life. I don't have this problem as much in real life as I do in video games, though, because a video game can look so perfectly cute.
Well, that's the thing. The outcome is more guaranteed. You know exactly what you did wrong and how it's.
And you get feedback a lot faster.
You get feedback, and in real life, you often don't get feedback at all.
Yeah, that's true too. And like,
I guess I mean specifically with plants. Like plants take a little while to tell you what's going on.
With plants is exactly what I'm talking about. In real life, as someone who has to deal with
never giving us feedback.
Well, as someone who's dealing with a yard, especially in the last few weeks, I had to deal. You guys saw my bamboo problem that I had to deal with. In real planting and yard maintenance and all the things you have to do to it, like there's so many variables that you don't know why a problem might be occurring. Or like I have a basement flooding problem, and that could be all a billion different reasons. Whereas in a video game, one of the things that makes the chores of a video game so much more satisfying is that you know exactly what is going wrong.
That's a really
and you can
good
fix
point.
it.
Yeah, and like if your basement flooded in Stardew Valley, that would be like a plot point, and there would be a townsperson who's a plumber that you would go to,
yes,
and then there'd be a whole storyline.
Yeah, whereas in real life, you have to call 4 different plumbers. They all give you different answers and different quotes, and you don't know who's trying to rip you off or how much. It's just a nightmare.
Yep.
So that is largely true of Stardew. There is a bit of mystery in the game that I think is part of its magic. Like you can get surprising crops. You'll have a humongous, whatever potato grow or bean or it's just something like each of the crops can kind of give you this mega version that's worth a lot more. And it's not always clear what it was that caused that to happen. And it is a nice little mechanical representation of just the way that plants surprise you when you have stuff planted in your yard or house plants. They can kind of do something that you weren't expecting in a way that can be really delightful. And I do like that he included that in the game too. It's not all exactly predictable at all times because that would be almost start to feel a little bit lifeless at a certain point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm glad that it's generally good surprises in Stardew Valley because the basement flooding idea is terrible, and I hope Eric Brown doesn't do that.
Well, there was a blight, some weird bugs ate all of your crops.
The locust infestation is going to make the next several years of your life
that's just
hell.
Frostpunk.
Right. There are probably mods that turn Stardew Valley into Frostpunk.
I'll have to look into that and see if there's any Stardew Valley mods that are like the Blight mod or like just like
Stardew Valley hardcore
Dark
mod.
Souls ass mod. That's
everyone
like,
in town
everyone
dies.
hates you. Like there's a plague and like everything is affected horribly. Like why? I mean, the game, that's kind of the antithesis of that game, and that's why it ultimately is pleasing, even though it does have those moments of friction and those moments that the townspeople don't always like you. It's still a video game and it feels really good. All right. Well, I think we can leave it there. Stardew Valley. If you haven't already played it, if you're one of those listeners that hasn't already played, you should play it. It's really good. I mean, we convinced you, I bet. I've really been enjoying playing it these past couple weeks, and I'm like, maybe just spend my next month or so playing Stardew Valley. That wouldn't be a bad use of time. So on that note, we'll be back in a second with one more thing.
It's Webby season. Hi, I'm Sequoia Holmes, host of the Black People Love Paramore podcast, and we are nominated for a Webby for the episode where I interviewed Haley Williams. In case you're unfamiliar, Black People Love Paramore is a podcast delving into the common and uncommon interests of Black people in order to help us feel more seen. We would love your vote to help us win this Webby. Please take a second and go over to the Black People Love Paramore podcast social media accounts, and you can find them at BPLP Pod across all social media platforms. Hit the link in bio and vote for Black People Love Paramore.
Hi, I'm Travis McElroy.
And I'm Teresa McElroy.
And we're the hosts of Schmanners.
We don't believe that etiquette should be used to judge other people.
No, on Schmanners, we see etiquette as a way to navigate social situations with confidence.
So if that sounds like something you're into,
join us every Friday on Maximum Fun or wherever you get your podcasts.
And we are back for one more thing. Kirk, why don't you go first?
All right. I will go first. I played a game while I was traveling. I was traveling to see the eclipse, which was amazing. And while traveling, I played a bunch of games on my Steam Deck. And one of the ones that I played is a new game that I played on Steam. I'm not sure what other systems it's on, but I know it's on PC. And there's a game called Children of the Sun that is very cool. That I really liked, and I think some of our listeners might dig too. It combines a lot of things that I really like in video games. So this is a game primarily developed, at least, by a developer named Renee Rother. I'm not sure if it's a solo dev kind of thing, but it definitely feels like the vision of one person. Like it has a very strong authorial voice behind it. It's a game. It's basically a sniper game that's a kind of mix between puzzle solving and I guess it's really a puzzle game. It's like a sniper puzzle game. It looks really intense. It's a very sort of violently drawn game. It's a little like Hotline Miami in that very stylized, ugly, weird look. And in it, you play a young girl who was raised in a cult, like out in the middle of nowhere. And the cult is called the Children of the Sun. And you're basically escaping and wreaking vengeance on everyone in the cult for reasons that become clear or ish or sort of explained. It's all a little bit abstract, but are explained in like very sort of stylized and overwhelming little cutscenes that play at various points through the story. But it's very much a kind of sequential indie game in that it's just a series of little puzzle rooms that you have to solve. Each one is, you are this girl, she is circling some encampment of cultists, of bad guys, and she has a single bullet in her gun, and she's going to shoot the bullet and has to kill all of them. This is a very violent and very gory game, very kind of weird and unsettling in a lot of ways. I saw someone call it a feel-bad game, and it is very much like a kind of an intense, gritty, in that Hotline Miami kind of way.
So nothing like Stardew Valley on pretty much every single possible level.
It's funny because I was playing Stardew Valley as well to talk about it for this episode, and I was going back and forth between the two. Like, yep, these are very, very different games.
Complete opposites.
Yeah, they're very different. It's really cool though. I'd say that I would kind of compare it to Super Hot, and I would compare it to Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. And then in terms of its aesthetic, it does have that Hotline Miami thing. But the gameplay is very kind of Super Hot meets Ghost Trick. So you have a single bullet. Each bullet kills anything that it touches, but you only have the one bullet. But the thing is, the main character is telekinetic, so she can move things with her mind. And as a result, you quickly unlock the abilities to steer the bullet and to ricochet it from person to person. So you'll be looking into like a farmhouse with a couple of guards out front, and there's one guy up in the window of the farmhouse. There's two people up front, and like two people are standing next to a car, and the gas tank is exposed. So you have to figure out how to ricochet the bullet through all of those people, and each time the bullet hits one target, time kind of stops and you can re-aim it. So you can just go from there, and as long as you have line of sight on the next target, you can like press the button again and it zooms to the next target. So you're kind of drawing lines, and in that way it feels like Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, which if you remember, that's a game where you're a ghost and you're kind of trying to Rube Goldberg your way through these puzzles to save people's lives. And sometimes you'll have to like jump up into an umbrella and then trigger the umbrella to open, which then causes it to fall down, which then puts you within reach of the telephone that you need to have ring so that someone picks it up so that an anvil doesn't fall on their head. Like there's a lot of kind of positional puzzle solving.
Yep.
And this game is very similar. So as you're going, it's like, well, there's no one standing next to that gas tank, but if I hit that gas tank, I'll have the ability to re-aim myself again, which will give me the angle on that last guy that I've been missing. And then once you have the ability to steer the bullet in midair, which feels like, in Assassin's Creed or whatever, you shoot an arrow and you kind of steer it at a guy, then you're really kind of driving around these increasingly complex puzzle rooms. And it's really satisfying and cool. It really has the rhythm, like the editing rhythm of Super Hot, which is a slow-mo game where you kind of like time speeds up as you speed up. It feels really similar in that like time freezes the minute you pull the trigger, and then guys start to move slowly, and then you just go through it, and it ends in this very abrupt, just like dead, like text on the screen, you did it, you beat it. It has that kind of in-your-face rhythm and energy as well. I think this game is really cool. I had first heard it, I think, from our former boss, Stephen Totillo, had played, I think, a demo of it at some point and messaged me and was like, dude, I think you'll really like this game because it's just up my street.
Yeah,
and
it does sound like
I really,
a Kirk game for sure.
Yeah, I really like this kind of game.
Yeah, it reminds me of those games like from your description. It reminds me of like what's it called, Shadow Gambit, like those types of games in some ways. Like those stealthish sniper games.
A little bit. It's not really a stealth game.
But more Rube Goldberg-ish.
Yeah, it's more of a like shooting puzzle game because at least I haven't finished it and I gather it's not super long, which is good because it's very intense. I don't think like a very long version of this would be, I feel like there's a length that this game is probably going to hit that'll be just the right amount.
Yep.
And it isn't really sneaking. Like you're not, at least from what I've played, you're never like sneaking around behind people.
No, yeah, that's not. I mean, in the sense that you're kind of looking at an environment and figuring out where you have to shoot at the exact right time, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yes, Ghost Trick seems like a good comparison. Yeah, seems really interesting.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah, I really dig it and recommend it. I think, there might be a demo of it that you can play, I believe. So anyone who wants to try it out can. And
Children of the Sun. Interesting.
yeah, I think it's kind of a bad name. Like, I think it should have been called Ricochet or something, like something that implies what it's actually about.
Yeah.
Children of the Sun is a little bit vague. But anyways, really cool game, worth checking out.
We've certainly heard worse game names. So I feel like at least it's kind of evoking the cult, and that's what it's about.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
not too bad. All right, I'll go next. So I played a board game called Wingspan, but it's also a video game. This is a pretty famous board game, actually.
Yes, we have this game.
Yeah, so it's got a lot of little pieces. So the reason why this board game came into our house is because it was my wife's birthday, and she's an avid bird watcher. And so a friend of ours got Wingspan for her as a gift. And we played it over the weekend, and Dina was like 110% obsessed with this game. And there's a single player mode of the board game that she continued playing while I played something else because I was like, this is a lot of mental work. But I do think I recommend it, especially if you like bird watching or anything akin to that, because it's an extremely detail-oriented game. So something about the game that struck me as pretty funny right off the bat is that like immediately in the tutorial booklet, they're like, okay, so we have a lot of little food tokens for each of the birds because the point of the game is you're building an Audubon society and you're collecting birds, but not all of the food tokens are precisely accurate to what those birds eat. And we know that. It was almost like they were like, we don't want to get any angry letters about this.
That's funny.
But we only have 4 food tokens here, and we're aware that the birds eat different things, but we had to consolidate somewhere. And I was like, this game is amazing.
Preemptive, pedantic gamer warning.
So happy that this game is like already like coming out here being like, listen, we know a lot about birds, and we know that you, the purchaser of Wingspan, probably also know a lot about birds. And you can buy different expansions for different parts of the world if you want different birds. So we have the North American birds. Dina knows every single bird and what they eat. I am learning as I go along. The other massive credit that I can give to this game is that it has an extremely good tutorial system. So they actually give you multiple booklets that are like, here, play this fake version of the game before you play the real game. And it kind of continues into the real game, but like the first 5 turns or so, it's telling you what to do for every single turn and why, because it's extremely complex. Like, this is a game where you're like punching little things out of cardboard for like an hour before you even set up the game. It's like, think Settlers of Catan, but like several steps beyond in terms of little fiddly bits that are all over your coffee table for this experience. So each of us has a booklet. And it tells Dina, like, for your first turn, here's what you should do. Place a bird card on the board. That indicates this. Here's what you should feed the bird. Here's how many eggs the bird's going to lay. Eggs are currency. Food is currency. There's multiple dueling currencies in order to, like, unlock the birds for your Audubon Society. And there's a complex system of points by which your Audubon Society is graded at the end of the game. And that's essentially the game. It's just that in practice, it's significantly more complex than that. And if we hadn't had these little tutorial booklets, I can promise you I never would have understood this game, like, ever. I truly needed it to tell me exactly what to do. And it kind of like, it walks you up to turn 5, and at turn 5 it was like, and now play the game, and I was immediately struck with terror. I was like, I don't know how to play a bird card. I don't know where I am right now. But I got through it, and then I ended up being like, this is actually really cool. I learned a lot, and I like any game where I learn a lot. And I will say, though, like, if you have somebody in your life like Dina is, who really enjoys bird watching and really enjoys a game that is fiddly, for lack of a better term, for this genre of game, like very precise, very like lining up by little numbers and making sure everything works together. Like, if you have someone in your life who has these qualities, you must get them Wingspan. You must. And there's a video game version, apparently, which is preferable in my view if you don't want little fiddly bits. Our cats were really excited about this game and really excited for things they aren't allowed to play with, so that's a concern. But yeah,
well,
Wingspan.
Love birds too.
Yeah, well, it's really just these little eggs that they wanted to steal and bat around. So that, I don't know. I did enjoy it though, but Dina enjoyed it significantly more than I ever could have imagined. It was a perfect present for her.
Didn't they just release Wormspan, which is about dragon? It's like the
fictional.
dragon version of this
Yeah,
game?
it's like a fully fictional version of Wingspan, which I think is maybe a little less fun. We did have a review on Polygon that was about that and was about, I mean, it depends. I mean, of course, people can disagree, but there is sort of a difference between having a bunch of fictional dragons and you're sort of like creating this menagerie of dragons and they have fictional stats, as opposed to the lovingly pedantic levels of bird knowledge that is present in Wingspan, which is fully accurate. Beautiful paintings of these birds on every single card.
Yeah, the art is really lovely.
It's really like, I understand almost like the divide between like the interest in something like Wormspan, which is like, it's fictional, versus Wingspan, which is like, this is for bird nerds. That is who it's for. That's who it caters to. And that is why it's fun. And they might be different audiences. But Jason, what's your one more thing?
Did you know that there is an entire war between people who are think that the feral cat population is killing all the birds, and the people who want to protect the feral cat population?
Did you listen to the search engine about that?
There's a search engine episode, which is fascinating about cats.
Yeah,
it's really crazy.
It's a thing.
We should link that. That was a really good episode. I think people
extremely good episode.
It's really intense, but good.
PJ Votes podcast search engine. My one more thing is Fallout, the new TV show on Amazon Prime. We're going to get into this a lot more when we do our bonus episode on it later this month, but I have really been enjoying it, so I just thought I would share it as a quick one more thing. So this show is, of course, set in the world of the video game series of the same name, which is a world in which America has been destroyed by a nuclear war. But before it was destroyed, nuclear fission was popularized and turned into the kind of dominant form of technology. And so therefore America kind of maintained and preserved its culture from the 1950s. So it's got this really unique culture, and the games and also the show have this really unique aesthetic of like 1950s crooning pop songs and like dresses and kind of TV looks, the kind of CRT look, combined with high-end technology stuff. So it's a really interesting world, and it's also hilarious and dark and bleak and full of all sorts of juicy satire and post-apocalyptic goodness. So the show works really, really well. It's really, really good. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that it's a TV show. And I think we found now that with this and The Last of Us, that video games adapt really well to kind of prestige television. And the reason for that is because the Fallout games are all about going on side quests and diversions and exploring. And the show allows for that. So for example,
there's that line, right? Walton Goggins is like, the rule of the wasteland is you're going to get distracted by some bullshit.
Some bullshit. But early in the second episode, there's a scene where one of the main characters, this guy is this kind of like member of the Brotherhood of Steel, this zealous militaristic group. He finds these two people fighting, and one guy is like choking out the other guy. And so he jumps in, he intervenes, as you would if you were playing a Fallout game, and like you saw in the corner of your eye some two guys fighting. And so our main character is grabbing the first guy. The second guy is like, "Why, thank you, good sir. Like, good day to you, sir." And he runs off into the wasteland. And the first guy is kind of like looking at him forlornly. He's kind of like, man, like, it's just guy was fucking my chickens. That to me was like the perfect Fallout side quest, which
really
is like,
is.
you think you're
It
doing
really
something
is.
noble and good, and then there's this perverse subversion of your expectations in the funniest possible way. So I really enjoyed the show. I think that is kind of a good encapsulation of it. Also, the
And
kind
of the humor.
one of the lead characters, Ella Purnell from Yellow Jackets,
from
plays
Yellow
this character
Jackets.
named Lucy, and Lucy
Also
is
from
this
Arcane.
vault dweller who has to go into the wilderness, go into the wasteland, and rescue her father. Kind of the inverse of Fallout 4's plot, where you are the father going to rescue your kid. And she is a great main character because she's very naive, and she's kind of acts like
naive.
the player character of the game, where she just goes around and talks to everybody and
it's like
does
loves
side
the
quests
golden
and stuff.
rule. It's like she's playing in the way that I often play games where I'm like, well, I have to be nice to everybody.
She tries to do the right thing. She's a good main character. So yeah,
absurd,
she's a standout. And yeah, the show's really enjoyable. We'll talk about it more in the future, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I'm really liking it, and I'm excited to do a Beanscast on it.
Same.
It's really good.
Yeah, we finished it over the weekend, and Dina really
nice.
liked it too. Even as someone who's never played a Fallout game, I'll give that pitch for the listeners who are like, what, if I don't like Fallout? She thought it was hilarious too.
Yeah.
I think it's very approachable.
To give another spousal endorsement, Emily doesn't really like violent stuff, and the show is extraordinarily
It is.
violent. I will say that people should know that it's like
It's
really
quite
violent,
bloody.
but she's into it. She's still hanging with it, even though it's got so much violence, because we're enjoying it so much.
That's good to know.
It's a lot of like comedic violence and non-human character violence, like, mutated cockroaches ate
Some
all.
violence on animals.
I know.
That's a little tough. Yeah,
But-
we're getting through it. It's such a fun show, anyways. It works for us, anyways.
Yeah, it's very, very good. All right. With that, we've done yet another episode of Triple Click for you folks, and we'll leave it there and see you next week.
All right. See you both next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddy Myers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edit and mix the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Some of the games and products we talked about on this episode may have been sent to us for free for review consideration. You can find a link to our ethics policy in the show notes. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll consider supporting us by becoming a member at MaximumFun.org/join. Find us on Twitter at TripleClickPod, send email to tripleclick@MaximumFun.org, and find a link to our Discord in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.